Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. I wanted to find out how the blood started in New York City because when I left and got locked up by the feds for my indictment down in Virginia and along the East Coast, there was no bloods in Harlem and all that, the Bronx running around. And I come home and the bloods is everywhere. I respect the brothers, so I said, let me look into their history and see how they were created. And from doing that, I went on YouTube and I just put in how the blood started in New York, and I found a program that I like this program. Sit back and enjoy this, man. All right. All right, you know what it is, Unique Mecca Audio, man. I'm here. I found the joint because I was looking on YouTube and, so this is my disclaimer. I don't know anything about the Bloods in New York, how they was formed. I got locked up from 1993, December 10th to be exact, and came home May 15th, 2020. And now when I come home, the Bloods is everywhere. Everything done changed. The Crips is everywhere. There's gangs everywhere. The Trinitarios uptown. So I'm going to do all the gangs. But first I wanted to do the Bloods because when I put it in, I found this video and this brother is very articulate. So sit back and listen to this. If you got any questions, put it in the comments. All right.
My name is Shanduk Mifado, also known as Tribe Gangster. I'm one of the first generation leaders of the Gangster Killer Bloods. This is how crime works. New York is just broken up into pockets and it's diverse. If you're wearing certain colors in certain neighborhoods, it will bring attention to you, especially if you're a young black and brown male. Some of them don't care. They're going to run down. They're going to shoot your block up. They're going to shoot up a party, a barbecue. I've been able to stop people from shooting people because of my life experience, my incarceration experience.
Joining the game. See where that goes. The cleanup set.
The United Blood Nation is a culmination of several different New York founded sets that came together to create the United Blood Nation.
And all right, stop. So what I heard is, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, because I was in the feds and these are the stories that came in. They said that the United Blood Nation was started from back in 92 on Rikers Island. I think Corey King, from my now, they said Corey King and OG Mac, EKG, EKB, excuse me, EKB. These are things, GKB. I'm just trying to remember this, so just bear with me, y'all. So we're going to play this, and I'm going to learn with y'all, how the Bloods was created. So if any Bloods is watching this, that could be respectful and come up here and enlighten the brothers and sisters so they know the foundation and what the purpose of the Bloods is. Because what we're seeing now is just a lot of violence, and we need to really get the message to the youth what the Bloods is for and was created for. And this brother is going to break down the history of the Bloods. Let me get back. All right.
And I was recruited by the UBN on Rikers Island. Rikers Island is one of the biggest county jails in the world. It's not a prison, it's a jail that holds detainees. And Rikers have always had a mixture of New York City. New York Bloods started on Rikers Island and it trickled down to the streets versus some places where it started in the streets into the jails.
Now, I'm going to bring Corey King up here if y'all would like, because I want to know, why did the blood start in New York City, in the jails and not on the street? I heard the answers, but I'm going to leave that open for Corey King and whatever other blood that could come up here and be respectable like Corey and enlighten the people. But my question is, and y'all put in the comments, why was the Bloods started on Rikers Island instead of on 8th Avenue, on Pitkin Avenue in Brooklyn, on Fordham Road in the Bronx? Somebody put it in the comments.
I was 16 when I first got involved. When I was recruited, it was in the beginning stages. I became one of the people who actually were recruiting in the streets from 94 in and out, where I would be on Rikers, get involved with what's happening in Rikers, and then come home. So
All right, pause. So that's where my disclaimer falls in. He's saying from 94, I got locked up December 10th, 1993. So I know nothing about this. And I'm trying to learn. And I'm sure there's a bunch of y'all that want to learn, and some need to learn so they could understand what the Bloods is about. And maybe they could talk to the youth and we could all help the youth move forward. But we have to find out how this began in New York City. When I left, there was no gangs in New York City, no Bloods and no Crips that I know of. And I'm just speaking from my experience, all right, that was on the streets in Harlem where I was at, in the Bronx, and where I moved, and even in Virginia, North Carolina, and D.C. I didn't know nothing about no Bloods in these places on the East Coast, and now it's flooded. So I said, let me look into how it began.
So I was known as one of the first Bloods in the streets of New York as well. New York recruitment, I've never known personally from my experience where a recruitment called for you to get in the car and do a drive-by and just shoot up a block. Recruitment in New York City is definitely different from recruitment in LA and other states. You definitely have to have witnesses there. That's your oath being said in front of leadership, and you have to recite it in front of whoever the witnesses are. When G-Shine came up.
All right, Paul. So let's get that right. So he's saying that when you go out and you put your mission in and become a Blood, somebody of rank can have to be with you to witness that it happened, and you didn't go there and chicken out. Because if they would have sent somebody that was also scared, they could have came back with the plot that, yeah, he bust his gun and he did this and that, and ain't nothing happened. So they have somebody reputable go. I like that. Let's keep it moving.
About GKB came about, it had a reason under the United Blood Nation. And the reason was the cleanup set. And the cleanup set job was to make sure that any set under United Blood Nation was following the rules, regulations, and protocol.
Yo, that's deep. That's what you call structure. And that's what we say. We need to structure this in a positive way, because bottom line is they had a crew, from what he's saying, that if someone was violating all the way over in Bushwick, that they'll go all the way from the Bronx to Brooklyn, to Bushwick, to go check that because they violating the codes and making the set look bad. Let's take a ride, of the nation. Now, let's take a ride. Like in the prison, when something jump off, and you have your people that go and handle certain things, meaning if it's something with another race, then you got the homies that's on the front line, and then they go out and they put their work in to make sure that our face stay clean, that we're not tolerating any disrespect. So they saying they got a group of people that went out and did the cleanup to make sure that people followed protocol. You see how serious this is? So if you youngins think that I'm gonna do what I want to do when I get in the gang, ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do. Well, this brother is telling you right here how it works. So you might get in somewhere where the set is not really, pushing certain things, or maybe don't even know certain things, but just running and saying it's a set. But when you run across what we'll label the real Bloods, because I know that nobody wants anybody to make their crew, is what I called it back in the days, but now y'all call it set. Nobody want to make their set look bad. So somebody have to be in charge of carrying out whatever disrespect that's done to the set. And that don't mean that it's a disrespect done to a person. If it's done to a person, they handle their business. Then, of course, some of the set may go with him if need be, or if it happens, he pop off where he's at, and that's where it's at. Just keeping it 100. Let's get back to homie.
So G-Shine, and Deshaun stands for Soldiers Honored and Networking Toward Elevation. It trickled down into other states, Georgia, Florida. It went worldwide. The main projects in Brooklyn, New York that G-Shine operated out of is Albany Projects. We used to have mass meetings in St. John's Park, hundreds of bloods just coming out there daily, weekly, building, meeting, relaxing. New York, the boroughs have different energies. Brooklyn is known for something, Queens, Bronx, Harlem. And then you had a lot of West Indians that were living in East Flatbush and were known for being Crips. It really also had to do with the individuals that were the original leaders that actually came out of jail, that went into those boroughs, that really grew those sets in those boroughs. So you got sets like 183rd, which people know is in a certain neighborhood, right? When I speak about Soundview, right, you know Soundview bloods were a different type of bloods. So that's how.
So let me say this, right? I like that. See, remember that Kobe ride? Remember the movie Merc and Me? I think it was at the end of the movie, or maybe it was La Vida Loca. You know, it's one of the gang movies from California with the Hispanic gang. And when at the end they broke them up in the the state prison system and sent them all over the United States to break them up because they was too strong. And the last thing they told them when they ended the show was that when they send them over, that they would take their teachings with them and they'll be even bigger because now they're spreading the word. So don't worry about not moving there together. All right.
New York is around gangs and sets. I believe the projects in New York definitely leads to gun violence, leads to gang violence, leads to gang recruitment, lack of resources, broken families, fatherless families because of welfare, and over policing. There's a lot of historical issues when you growing up in nicer developments in New York. Young people today don't understand why this neighborhood, this project's got beef with this project. I'm from Wyckoff, Gowanus is down the block, and there was a time where they had beef, and there was a block that separated them. I was the catalyst to be able to stop Wyckoff and Gowanus from beefing. That's one of the main things about nicer developments is that the generational beef then trickled into the gangs.
Oh, that was deep. Did you hear what he said? He said the generational beefs from the projects trickled into gangs. That's how the gangs is created in the projects from the generational beefs, meaning somebody took somebody's sneakers or chain over here in this projects and they went to war with them for taking something from their projects, from anyone from their projects. And then that went on, and being that the families is staying in this nicer in development, that the beefs go on to their kids because the parents wasn't talking and the kids is there and listen to the parents saying we don't mess with them over there. So as they grow up, that get instilled in them not to. This is deep. I like this joint here.
And then you're talking about the drugs, right? So now, if I'm on this block and I'm selling drugs and your project is right there, I might feel like you taking money from me, and that might create a problem as well.
Now, back in the days, right? We talking about chapter 3 with money. You like the ride, and right now this is for the rap bastards and flip flop wearing and public trolls, because y'all ain't about getting no money. You just about trying to stop a black man's money, whether it's on YouTube or it's in the rap mogul game. But we ain't going for none of that. Now, if somebody sat there and started selling drugs in front of a building that, I'm running back in the days, we went out there with our pistol, we handled our business, and we got them out of there because this is our money, our building, and don't come to the building next to our building and all this because we're going to go to shooting again. All right, so now he's going to talk about how the sets handle it. Let's go. All right, she was pregnant.
If you are affiliated and somebody in your gang is selling drugs and you happen to be outside with them and they happen to be watching and they take a picture of y'all outside, that's how they get a lot of gang members in RICO cases just off of conspiracy. You had a
Now, what he's saying with that is to speed it up just so you understand. Just like you got guys making these rap videos, they out there, they might not even be about it, or they might be about it, but they got all these other people around them And a few of them is not about it, but they there. And when they see these rap videos and they take these still shots of the videos and they see these people there, they even gonna see the people that's not about it, that's just out there to enjoy the music, but they'll rope them in and say that they was now about it. So be careful who you hang with, because show me who your friends are, and I would tell you who you are. Is the syndrome that they going. If you're running with these drill rapping gangbangers that they put this negative stigma on, and you're in a video with them, you're one of them. You know what I mean? But I just like the music. No, you're one of them. But I just like the clothes. You're one of them. I just like the dance. No, you going down with them because you're one of them. All right, that's how simple it is. So when y'all want to go running these rap videos and you know they're in the projects, you even live in the projects, but you want to go downstairs and support your rapper, that's not allowed anymore. Basically, because once they take your picture, now you could be caught up as far as being about it.
The conversation with this person about drugs, you're affiliated, you're guilty of conspiracy. There are a lot of people who are affiliated that have never committed a crime, affiliated and respected, but they're straight businessmen and or women. So yeah, they definitely invested in a legal business. Before I touched the drug, I was a stick-up kid. No father, grew up in the projects, mom's getting food stamps. After coming from foster care, I became a product of my environment. And it was easier just to take the gun and go rob somebody. Before the gun, it was strong arm robbery. I'm a 78 baby, so I grew up in the 80s, 90s, and that's when you really had an overrun of crack cocaine in our neighborhoods. And I feel like that attributes to a lot of mental health issues as well, right? Nobody really talks about the fatherless crack baby and what they've experienced in life and where they at and what decisions they're making in life. I came out of prison and it wasn't no job opportunities. I worked and I sold drugs. I mean, I preferably chose to make sure that I didn't do any federal crimes.
You see what I'm saying? This right here is a word that I continuously use that I want y'all to understand. That's called mollifying. Mollifying is justifying a wrong with a right. In other words, oh, I came out of jail. I couldn't find no job. So I sold little drugs on the side while I looked for a job. I just come out of jail. My family didn't have no money. So I had to put my family in order. So as I looked for a job, I sold a little drugs. So I didn't want to go get a job because it wouldn't be enough to pay the family. Everything I just said is called mollifying. Make sure you subscribe to my daughter's YouTube channel at Juanita Mecca Audio. If you want to know how it's spelled, that's it on the screen. Let's get back to his mollifying. And it's not to disrespect the young man, but he studied psychology, so he knows exactly what I'm saying. But he's just letting you know that back then he was mollifying. But right now he knows for a fact that he was the pulse on the problem of our neighborhood, just as I was. And I know it, and I'm trying to give back like this young man is trying to give back. That's why I love this video. Let's move forward.
Especially being a known gang member at that time. So I made sure that if anybody was part of my direct set, that we never got any illegal money together. From dark to sun up, and there was 2-3 days straight, I ain't get no sleep because I wanted every dime that came through. I don't care if I sold $200 to or $2,000, and I'm calling my weight man, my re-up man, and I'm flipping that immediately. That was my mind. Flip it. Once you flip it, you doubling your money. I remember I was selling crack one time, and a friend of mine that I grew up with came to me. She was pregnant, and she said, "Can I get 2 dimes?" And I was like, "You pregnant?" She was like, "So?" I was like, "Yeah, I can't do that." She's like, "Well, somebody's gonna sell it to me. It ain't gonna be me, right?" And that's when I really kind of understood myself. It made me feel like a bad person. It just wasn't. It just didn't sit right with me. Right? There's some people who don't care. They don't care what you look like. They just want that dollar. I've never been that person that's just willing to take a dollar, no matter the morals and the principles that came behind it.
Dog pause.
You got a gentleman by the name of OG Mac who allegedly went to the West Coast, learned about the Bloods on the West Coast, and came back and introduced it 31 years ago, July 16, 1993. That's why you got 9 Trey, because it was created in 93.
All right, see, that was July. That was on Rikers Island. I was in uh, the streets about to be picked up 5 months later on December 10th, 1993. So all this is new to me. So all I'm trying to do is learn about this, and I figured that I'll share my learning with you as a tutorial so you understand the history of the Bloods that you see that has a bad stigma now. And maybe we could get them to unite and do something positive like rallying the people to vote, you know?
Wasn't we're going to kill Crips like what y'all were doing in the West Coast. It was we're going to protect blacks from being oppressed. We're going to stop oppression on Rikers.
Stop. Isn't that what Pistol Pete was talking about when I seen all that on YouTube that I didn't touch, and I don't want to touch it now, but I just want to mention it because I think it falls in with this situation. If anybody know about this, please call in. A matter of fact, Corey King. Anybody know Corey King? Tell Corey King to reach out to me. I'm gonna get Corey King up here because I know for a fact what I heard from my personal knowledge is that Corey King was one of the founders. Where I think it was Chief and OG Mac or something like that. That it was, not to disrespect. I don't remember the name, but I'm gonna make sure I take time to study it now to give them my undivided attention and respect. And y'all, so maybe they could, get in a more positive light because this brother seemed to have turned his life around. Let me finish now.
Originally, when you first became blood, there was the way of identification. Like all the bloods used to get dog paws burnt onto your arms. You could identify a blood by just seeing that they had their burns, their dog paws in their arm. So that's an example of something that hasn't happened in many, many years.
Yo, I remember because I'm riding. When I was in Otisville, I seen a bunch of young brothers that had these burn marks. I think they said they was the dog paws and they got it made for the cigarette. They got it made. It was a cigarette that they actually imagine being burnt with a cigarette in the shape of a dog paw. Y'all ready for that? That was them showing their loyalty. Imagine someone asking you to show your loyalty by let me take this cigarette and burn this dog paw in your forearm. Would you do it? Huh. Like you said, they haven't did it in many years, so obviously it faded, but that's how you separate the truly loyal from the ones that's just saying they are. Because if you're going to endure pain like that, then you know what it is.
There's a saying that people hear today, they say it all the time. They make music about it. It's like, you're a dub, right? That's a dub. That's East Coast blood lingo. Gangster killer blood lingo. That started from a code that said 00 banger, right? And that code meant no good. So that's an example of some of the lingo that has became part of urban music, urban society right there. We had a thing called Gangster Mac and G Mac. That's actually one of the first codes that Bloods used in state prison. And it was a term of relax, chill, be easy. Today, people say in the music, you hear the music a lot. They be like, yo, I'm Mackin', I'm G Mackin'. People don't know where it derived from, but it derived from the Gangsta Killer Bloods original codes, because in state prison, codes were created to communicate, because at that time, Bloods were the minority in New York State prisons. So with so much opposition, the only way to communicate was through codes on a gate, especially in maximum facility prisons. Everything definitely has a concept. 031 is 31 rules under the United Blood Nation. And that was agreed in 031 Blood. That was one of the first original greetings that came by the way of East Coast Bloods. Gang culture definitely became more popular through music, like Boys in the Hood, right? That was actually gang culture. And you pay attention, you see Ricky getting shot, and you see the homies in the red car, and that was gang culture. Snoop promoted the heck out of gang culture. He was at the Super Bowl, crip walking. He's accepted, right? Gang culture. I give it to Jim Jones for the New York level of notoriety on the music level. Nobody did it like him in Dipset. Everybody knew Dipset was blood. And Dipset was one of the major labels out of New York City, pushed great music that everybody was rocking to. And it's stuff like that that made a lot of people want to become non-Trey. When you understand the cooks, the crews, and everything else that's happening, you understand the music, you understand what's causing, you understand drill music. That's one of the main catalysts for the driving of violence in New York City right now. The music is something that they're now starting to utilize to talk about opposition, because now people want views based off of YouTube and everything else. So the violence definitely has went up based on the last few years of what music has been offering to our community.
Isn't he very articulate?
When we were coming up, first generation, we weren't talking about what we represent in music. We weren't talking about it on the internet. We were always low key about what we represented. If you're somebody who's looking to just live your life and protect yourself, you're not out there living that lifestyle of, hey, I'm a gangster, I'll shoot you, I shot your friend. We didn't come from that. We've always had a fear of dealing with law enforcement, dealing with the FBI. But as you look at the young generation today, you look at the transition of the internet and the notoriety from views, you might get on this track. You feel like you can get on by talking about your opposition and who you shot. And now they have no choice but to respond because you done told them, hey, listen to this song. Your man got shot. I'm telling you in this song that it was me. So now your opposition know who they gunning for, and that's what I see was happening today.
Yo, that was deep. That was deep. Dude shoot somebody, go on a record and say, "Yeah, I shot your man. What you gonna do about it?" So it's forcing him to have to respond, whether it's physically with the pistol, or he gonna ride out, or he just gonna say, "Now let's keep it moving."
Younger brother was killed because of music and internet stuff. It was all over the news. It's a rapper by the name of Troy Ave. Got into a beef with a podcaster by the name of Tax Stone. And Tax Stone brung a gun into Urban Plaza 2016. And my brother was the friend and security of Troy Ave. 4 people were shot. My brother died. That really challenged me. So I always mention my younger brother who's no longer with us. Gang violence in the recent years have definitely increased in New York. Gang wars are different for us in New York. Our wars started inside of jail. When you look at the California gang banging mindset, New York didn't have a gang banging concept. So we didn't just come outside and have to worry about a group just coming down and just shooting at us. It started in jail and it was about stopping oppression. So now what trickled in the streets came because you
See, whoa. He said stopping oppression. So if he's saying stopping oppression, oppression from who? I think that falls back on the Pistol Pete, controversy we had back then. I just wanted to point that out because maybe I'll bring Pistol Pete up here and we'll talk about it. I did Dog in the Yard with him, so I definitely wanted to, hear his opinion. That's why certain things I don't respond to because a lot of it be YouTube stuff. And I know these brothers are men, so I'm not gonna let a YouTuber tell me about a man. That's like a rat telling you about a man. You just don't listen. Let's go.
you had Crips that came to New York, and then there was a misunderstanding of what Bloods were representing in New York when the Crips came to New York, and that started Blood and Crip wars. But it wasn't something that New York has focused on, just territorial wars and stuff like that. I wasn't somebody who automatically just went into gang wars or shooting up blocks because somebody was a Crip or another gang. You might have heard of Woos and Chos, and rest in peace to Pop Smoke. He's one of the most famous Woos, right? The Woos and Chos operate within different areas of East Flatbush, Brooklyn in general, different cliques or crews or gangs that were either Bloods and Crips, Gangster Disciples, based on whoever had a relationship in those neighborhoods that sat down and said, yo, we got beef with the same individuals. We might as well strengthen ourselves and come together, get money together, and deal with whatever opposition that comes our way. Right?
And right, cause we ride. I'm gonna give you one, right? Just like in the prison, right? The white dudes aligned themselves with the Latinos, meaning the Mexican gangs in California, and the Mexican gangs lined themselves with the white dudes in California to strengthen the numbers. The Mexicans in California is already huge, put their work in, but the white dudes is just a handful in any jail you go in, but they always roll with the Mexicans, and the Mexicans hold them down. So if the white dudes get into something, the Mexicans 9 times out of 10 is gonna pick up and join on that beef. So that's why the blacks, we all come together in the feds. So I'm comprehending what he's saying with the UBN, you know, that they came together to stop the oppression. Because out west, we're outnumbered. I've been out west for a decade in federal prison, maximum security prison, all maximum security prisons in the West Coast. And out there, it's, you know, everybody against us. Okay, if something happened, we ride. If something happened with a dude from Georgia, a black dude from Georgia and a white dude or Spanish dude, everything black on the compound is rolling with that dude from Georgia against that other race. That means the Bloods, the Crips, the GDs, the Vice Lords, or everybody that you could consider ops because we're black and we was opping on the street or opping in jail. When it comes to a race joint, you have to get involved, because if you don't get involved, you're gonna get hit, because they're gonna take it that you're black, so you down, you're supposed to be down. If you're a clown, you scared, we're gonna step you anyway, because you just another bloodshed on our blade. You see how real it is in there? So you want to go to prison, and you see how nice and articulate this young man is speaking, man? Sit back, let me finish this ride.
Right. So these are homegrown. These were not prison grown affiliations. These are street created cliques and crews. Yeah, see, as far as weapons, we've never been a switch type of assault rifle type of community. You got 9mm, 40s, 357s. Dudes are putting work on you with a 22. Right? It's accessibility. You had to be that person to have one, to have connections to it. It's always predominantly been concealable weapons. You know, you run around in a car with a assault rifle. Okay, you might shoot up a neighborhood, but that's not something that happening on a regular basis in New York. My first legit gun was a Mac 10, and I don't know how I got there, but I know that it was nothing for me to be able to have access to that Mac 10. There's always been a structure in New York Bloods, the United Blood Nation, and even the sets that have branched off to create their own banners, that also always has structure, high respect for leadership, and following rules, regulations, and protocol. You got soldiers, you got generals, you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star general, your low original gangster, you got your high gangster OGs, you got your godfathers of the sets. I never was the leader of in either any of those sets. So my rank was a OG, high OG, double OG. I was at that level of position inside, and I had to put the necessary work in and leadership in to hold that. From my personal experience, NYPD is very biased about how they deal with gangs. I don't believe that they have a real understanding of the gangs. I believe that they think that it's just about murder and killing. From my perspective, they just look to just figure out how they could just run down in those neighborhoods and make gang arrests as their way of dealing with the violence. It's all about arrest and conviction. It's not about change and changing the narrative of the community. And half the time they're not reporting all these stops and frisks unless they find a weapon. That's how they play with the numbers. So in New York, they got a gang database, and we're fighting right now to shut down that New York gang database. They can put a 9-year-old, 10-year-old child in the NYPD gang database solely based off of wearing a certain color in a certain neighborhood. It affects those communities wholeheartedly. Like, just because they're affiliated and somebody in a set does a crime and you sweep the whole set, and there's guys who don't even know what somebody else did, what happens to that neighborhood? First of all, you took fathers, brothers, right? Family leaders that might have been finding a way to survive, to take care they siblings or their parents, grandmothers, You done took whatever resource they had out that house. The next players want to step up. So when the next players step up, now we going to beef and combat with each other, shoot at each other, kill each other, because we need to take a stronghold of this neighborhood. So gang sweeps lead to more violence. I don't think it works. I ran for borough president in Brooklyn, New York in 2021. I actually ran as an independent candidate. I'll definitely be able to make changes around public safety because I'm somebody who understands the full context of the gang mindset and the lifestyle.
Yo, I like this dude. If anybody know this dude, tell him to contact me, man. This dude is very intelligent, is very articulate, and I respect that he's trying to make a change instead of you rat bastards and flip-flop weird and public trolls that just sit back and look to make a comment to say something wrong. I'm learning, my people is learning. If you got anything to say, be respectful, or I'm giving you 3 seconds to tap off my channel. You know the routine. Take that with you on the way out.
The first time walking to Rikers Island, I remember I was very, very young, of course, 16, and I got beat up by the correctional officers my first time in Rikers. They beat me right on up and took me to my housing area. I had a black eye and everything. And I remember going to the housing area, and guys saw me with a black eye, and they came up to me and they was like, yo, let me get your sneakers. Let me get them Timbs. Let me get those pants. You're not getting none of this. So they're like, you a tough guy. When we come, everybody turned me, you're always a tough guy. But I fell victim to everything that was there. This is jail. The mindset is like this. I'm a survivor, and I'm gonna give y'all all the negative energy that you have for me. I'm gonna give it to y'all before you give it to me. So that was my mindset. Then it was just back and forth. That every time I went back and forth, I ordered.
Let me say that. I'm gonna take you on the ride. I'm gonna use Lou Sims for a minute, and I think I'm gonna do the video later on today or early tomorrow with the interview with Prince from the Supreme Team and Lou Sims. Lou Sims spoke on that, saying that when he went to prison, that he's not gonna say that it changed him, but it brought a different side of him out. Because on the street, no matter what they said, we know he put his work in. You know what I mean? We ain't even gonna play with that, right? We know he put his work in, but at the same time, he's a comedian. You know what I mean? He tells the craziest jokes, some funny, some not, but that's just Lou. Everybody knows that. But when he got into prison, it brought out another side of him where he got more serious. And from him having to wear that serious face from driving and being in control of the New York car on the compounds that he's on, it's like he picked up this serious demeanor. So me and him might be riding one-on-one in the car, right? And he's sitting there, he's looking all serious. He got his chest out, and he's sitting there, and I'm like, yo, what's up? And he's like, no, ain't nothing. I'm like, dude, loosen up. And he's like, no, I am loose. I'm like, nah, dog. That's the Lou they created. I want the Lou that we know that's always telling jokes, whether funny or not funny. And be like, oh, you got jokes. I said, hell yeah, and then we start laughing, and he go back to being Lou. But being that I know him, I know how to tell him to snap out of it and come back to being you, and not the you that was created, you understand, to survive an unnatural environment. Because anyone that don't understand that prison is an unnatural environment, never been to prison, or it's totally lost. I knew the whole time I was in prison, I was a prisoner of war because I was incarcerated during the war on drugs as a prisoner for being one of the poisoners of my community during the war on drugs. So when a decade went by and they stopped using that terminology, and I used it with one of my comrades that came in or that been in, he be like, nah, I'm not no, I'm not locked up for the war on drugs. Then you was locked up for drugs during the crack era with me, right? Yeah. Well, I'm not, dude. Bottom line, they're changing the narrative, but look at the facts and the reality. They took us off the street by telling the community that we poisoned them and we was the enemy of the United States of America. That's why our indictment said Waynesburg Unique Hall versus United States of America. That means they had the power of all 52 states, just like what Diddy's going through right now. Sean P. Diddy Combs, Love Combs, whatever the hell you want to call them. It's him against the 52 states. They got all the resources. He got the resources to do what he needed to do. Do you think he's going to testify? I'm going to do a video about that today. I got to do a video, man. Let me get back to this because we ride.
Automatically started to gain control. Somebody had to run the house. That was me, right? And it just became who I was. Every time I went to jail, I'm taking over this house. I'm taking over the phone, right? I'm running the situation. And that's what it was. How do you make money in prison is getting drugs inside the jail. You might have people in state prison that was doing heroin, but Rikers is definitely known for weed. You had COs that would bring weed. Back then, you could get a visit and you have girls bringing you weed. You don't have cash on Rikers. As long as you have commissary food items, that's money in there. So you take some weed, you sell somebody $25 worth of weed, and they'll give you $25 in commissary or send that money out to the streets. I reflect on my prison time as education, as school. I've come to the terms of understanding that no life is the same. We're all going to go through something that's going to help define who we are. And it didn't rehabilitate me. I had to rehabilitate myself. As the adolescent mind is different. So as that prefrontal cortex shifted and I started understanding life and who I really was, I changed my mindset. So I reflect on it based on the work that I've been doing, that it was for me to experience that so that I could be who I am, to be able to help make change, right? Experience is the best teacher.
When did you decide that you wanted to leave the gang?
Upon my last incarceration, 2005, 2008, I ended up doing my last bid for 3 years. I was convicted of attempt criminal possession of a weapon. That changed my way of thinking, and my lifestyle shift happened while incarcerated. And I thought about my past of recidivism, in and out, in and out. And so I came home from my first bid. I started working. I was actually doing a security job, and I got fired because somebody else who was a felon, he was working with the same security company I was working for, and they found out that this was hiring felons to do security, and they had to fire people like me. And every time I went in and came out, I went back to the same neighborhood, to the same lack of opportunities. The opportunities that was open to me was criminal activities, drug dealing, hustling. I decided that I had to do something different. I had to stop that cycle the best way I could. March 2012, I founded GMAC in Brooklyn, New York. Gangsters making astronomical community changes. And our goal was to focus on violence prevention, interrupting the transmission of violence, get in the middle of conflicts, using street smarts to be the liaison between those who are at conflict in our community. GMAC was credited for a 30% decrease in gun violence in the neighborhood in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, that we were providing these services to. We had to find the violence to be able to de-escalate that violence. And once we picked that catchment area, it took about 2 years or so, and we were able to bring down the shootings. My book is Two-Way Mirror, Trife Gangster versus Shanduke McFatter. I put that book together in that concept of understanding the difference between Trife and Shanduke. Trife is who consistently kept me in and out of the system. Shanduke is who I really am as a man, as a person, that transitions my life into a positive to help other people's life.
All right, so that's where we at right now. So you understand, that's Shandu. He did his thing. I want y'all to really just sit back, enjoy the ride. Make sure you subscribe to my daughter's YouTube channel. If there's any bloods out there listening that like to come in to enlighten us, and you could be respectful like this brother here, then we can move forward. All right, let's go. Let's keep it moving. Please subscribe to my daughter's YouTube channel at Unique Mecca Audio. All right.
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime. What?
fresh out the can of 26. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Real. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. The Instagram page and the YouTube, you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca audio.
Mecca what? Mecca audio. Mecca what? Mecca audio. Mecca what? Mecca audio. Mecca what? Mecca audio. And we gon' do it like. We gon' do it like. We keep it moving like. We gotta do it like.
Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was wine. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spin a couple bands on the dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a raw in uptown. Baby horn uptown, Dominican bust downs. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend a ear. He started in uptown, he gon' finish dead. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community ours. So we can give back to the
Cheers, cheers, the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime.